Happy 2026 and welcome to Grad-post. I'm your host, Brian S. Mitchell, and we're here to talk about all things related to graduate school and advanced degrees. I'll draw upon my experiences as a graduate dean and research mentor, as well as my network of students, colleagues, and experts to bring you the most complete information on graduate education that I can. 2025 was a tumultuous year for higher education in general, but graduate education bore an inordinate amount of that upheaval due to its strong dependence on federal research funding, as I discussed in episodes 33 and 35 last spring. I continue to monitor the impacts of seismic policy shifts and changing public opinion on the diminution of graduate education I outlined in episode 38. And there's no stronger leading indicator than graduate school enrollment trends. Fortunately, the Council of Graduate Schools' annual report on graduate enrollment and degrees was just released in December, so there's plenty of fodder for our discussion. You can find the report here. The Graduate Enrollment and Degrees Report, GED as it's known, is arguably CGS's most anticipated and accessed report, especially now that the Department of Education has suspended its key educational statistics activities. There are still statistics collected on advanced degrees through NSF's National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics, NCSES, particularly its doctorate recipients from U.S. universities report and the Survey of Earned Doctorates database. But like most things coming out of the government these days, it's not clear how long these reports will continue to be collected, how the data will be analyzed and distributed, nor how the categories of information collected or not collected will be manipulated to pass agency apparatchik approvals. So, the GED provides some continuity and analysis from an independent research organization that is welcome in an environment of informational chaos. Having said that, there are some limitations to the GED. First, the data are a year old. The just released 2025 report is for enrollment and degree data collected as of fall 2024. Second, while the response rate to the survey is generally high, 71%, it is sent to only 760 colleges and universities in the United States. There are over 1,000 doctorate granting institutions alone in the US, and over 1,800 that grant master's degrees. So the responses of some 536 institutions hardly represent the entire graduate education landscape in the United States. Nevertheless, most of the largest producers of advanced degrees participate in the survey, and on a percentage basis, the trends are a good reflection of what is happening in the broader industry. So let's dive in. First, let's see what the broad takeaways are according to CGS. I'm just picking 3 of their 6 highlights. Compared to 2023, CGS found that small and medium institutions face greater enrollment challenges compared to larger institutions. First time and total enrollment for international students was down across the board, and fewer degrees were conferred at both doctoral and master's levels. The first finding shows that graduate enrollment dropped at both small and medium-sized institutions, and that they struggled to reach pre-pandemic enrollment levels. I'm not surprised by the decline in total enrollment, as the pandemic caused many students already in graduate programs to delay graduation until 2022 and 2023. There were 9% and 10% more master's and doctoral degrees awarded, respectively, in 2023 over 2022, as the pandemic delayed students completed their degrees and the job market opened back up. But the disproportionate drop in enrollment at small and medium institutions relative to the larger institutions is disturbing. As federal student loan programs are downsized, the availability of funds, specifically for master's level programs like nursing, becomes limited, and international enrollments are curtailed, expect the pressure on small and medium institutions to grow. Program and institutional closings and consolidation cannot be far behind. The second CGS finding that international enrollments is down is not surprising at all. Remember, this is all before the immigration crackdown, withholding research funding from institutions for any number of reasons, enhanced screening of F-1 visa applicants for social media activities, higher fees for the H-1B visa program, and most recently travel bans to some common countries of origin for international graduate students. Karen Fisher of the Chronicle of Higher Education has been reporting on decreased international student enrollment for months now, and the situation is not going to improve. Look for the international student enrollments to plummet at all institutional sizes in the coming years. To me, this is the single largest area of concern to graduate program viability, the creation of highly skilled workforce, and American competitiveness in all areas. The third point about drops in the number of advanced degrees conferred has already been discussed in the post-pandemic context, but CGS has some interesting analysis here. They point to students extending or abandoning their studies, shifts from full-time to part-time enrollment, and increasing affordability issues as key contributors. While these factors do indeed play a role, there's also a time lag between when factors like these become important and when degrees are conferred. See, for example, my analysis of visa policy influences on graduate degree production. So these factors, and others, won't really have an impact until 2030 for doctoral degrees. But just like enrollment, things are going to get worse before they get better. CGS does a very good job of staying focused on the data and avoiding controversial interpretations of their findings. They have a government advocacy arm, after all, and taking pot shots at federal policies while advocating for graduate education with lawmakers can be counterproductive. I don't have that encumbrance, however, so let me point to two additional findings in this report that I find really interesting. First, let's talk acceptance rates. The big takeaway is that 40% of applicants to graduate programs in the United States get accepted. That's probably a conservative figure since the 536 participating institutions in this survey include most of the R1 institutions with competitive doctoral programs. The institutions not participating in the survey would have even higher acceptance rates on average by my estimation. The breakdown of that 40% acceptance rate by master's, doctoral, and broad degree fields is shown here. There's no surprise that master's acceptance rates continue to be higher than for doctoral programs, and that fields like education and public administration have some of the highest acceptance rates in both master's and doctoral programs. Business also has a high acceptance rate at the master's level, so if you're looking for that MBA, now's as good a time as any to get in. The CGS data show that acceptance rates at private institutions continue to be lower than for public institutions in virtually all fields, regardless of degree level, and the toughest programs to get into are doctoral programs in arts, humanities, and social sciences. No surprises there either. Turning to the demographic data in the CGS admissions and enrollment report, my final observation is that men made up 44% of first-time enrollees in doctoral programs and 41% of first-time enrollees in master's programs for fall 2024. This is a historical downward trend, and as I discussed previously in episode 38, is one of the factors that will contribute to the downsizing of graduate education in coming years. There are fields that are still male-dominated, like mathematics and computer science, engineering, and the physical and earth sciences, and we need to redouble our efforts to bring gender parity to these fields. But the least represented doctoral degree area for men is in public administration and services. Recall that these fields have some of the highest acceptance rates. Men constitute only 25% of the current enrollment in this discipline. There aren't many subdisciplines in this broad category, only community organization and advocacy, public administration by itself, youth services, and social work. Virtually all of these fields offer a master's degree as the terminal or highest degree, although some doctoral programs do exist. But for the Masters of Social Work degree, the MSW, the Council of Social Work Education reports that in 2022 and 2023, only 14% of enrollees were men. The percentage is almost exactly the same for enrollment in practice doctorate social work programs. Interestingly, the race and ethnic distribution in these programs roughly follows national demographics. I highlight this statistic of men in graduate programs because there is an intense social conversation about the role of men in our workforce, particularly young men under 30. In the context of higher education and graduate programs specifically, there is a tendency to designate young men as underrepresented. I can't argue with that. The statistics don't lie if you interpret them correctly. 44% of first-time enrollees in graduate programs were men in 2024. That's underrepresented when a little under 50% of the population identifies as male. I'm actually going to stop there because to go further into the male as underrepresented minorities conversation requires additional time and context, and I want to save that analysis for an upcoming episode. Consider this statistic from the report a teaser, but it highlights an increasingly formidable challenge for institutions of higher education as they make the case for their advanced degree programs to policymakers and the public. Should you download and adjust the Graduate Enrollment and Degrees Report? If you're a prospective or current graduate student, probably not. But if you're a faculty member, especially if you are on the admissions committee, a graduate administrator, or a graduate education researcher, it's a must read. Put an annual reminder on your calendar. This report comes out in early December each year in advance of the CGS annual meeting. Thank you for joining me today. All of the links provided on my podcast are available on my website at gradpost.com. That's GRAD-POST. There you'll find additional information and resources to help you start your adventure for an advanced degree. An advanced degree takes ability and desire and opportunity. Every one of them counts.